Someone handed you a rope. That is all. The morning was like other mornings. You woke early. You had work to do. You always had work to do. There is always work in a city. War or no war, the ordinary labor of keeping things standing and moving and functioning. You are a craftsman. Wood is your material. 10 years of siege meant 10 years of work. Walls reinforced, gates maintained, siege engines repaired. The 1,000 small structural tasks that a city under pressure requires. On this morning, someone told you to go to the plain. The Greeks were gone. You had heard this the previous evening. The ship sailed. The camp was empty. The war was over. You did not fully believe it. After 10 years, you had stopped fully believing good news. But the gates were open, and people were going out onto the plain, and you went with them. The horse was there, enormous, taller than 2 men, made of good timber. You noticed this immediately, because timber is your profession, and you read wood the way a sailor reads weather. Good work. The joinery was clean. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. The debate happened around you. Burn it, bring it in, sacred, dangerous. The priests spoke. The elders spoke. Cassandra spoke. You heard her. Everyone heard her. Everyone also knew about Cassandra. The decision was made. Someone handed you a rope. You pulled. This is a story about a man who did his job. Not a hero, not a villain. Not a king or a warrior or a prophet, a craftsman. A working man in a working city who on one specific morning was handed a rope and told to pull and pulled it, and by pulling it changed everything. He did not know what was inside the horse. He had no reason to know. The decision to bring the horse in had been made by people above him in every hierarchy that mattered. Religious, military, royal. His role was not to decide. His role was to pull. He pulled. The ancient sources do not name the men who actually moved the wooden horse through the Sagaean gate. They were ordinary workers, laborers, the people whose physical strength did the work that decisions require once decisions are made. They exist in the background of the story, as they existed in the background of the city, essential and unnamed. His name was Doros. He was 38 years old. He had been a carpenter in Troy for his entire adult life, the son of a carpenter trained in his father's workshop, carrying on the family trade through the 10 years of the war, because wars need carpenters as much as they need soldiers. He had repaired the gates of Troy twice. He had helped reinforce the walls. He had built the platforms from which the archers fired. He had served the city with his hands for 10 years. On the last day, he served it one more time. In this story, you are Doros. The rope is in your hands. The horse is moving. The gate is ahead. You are doing what you were asked to do. You are doing it well. You have always done your work well. In this story, you are the worker. The rope is heavy. The horse is heavy. The crowd around you is celebrating. You pull. You do not know what you are pulling. Your father taught you to read timber, not the words on a tablet. Reading of that kind was not part of your education. Reading timber, the way a piece of wood tells you its history in its grain, where it grew, how fast, what stresses it encountered, where the weak places are, and where the strong ones are. A carpenter who can read timber builds things that last. A carpenter who cannot builds things that look right and fail at the wrong moment. Your father was good at it. You are better. 20 years of working wood will do that. Your hands know things your mind does not always have words for. The specific resistance of a piece when the grain runs one way versus another. The sound a joint makes when it is perfectly fitted versus almost fitted. The way a surface responds to a plane when the wood is properly dried versus still carrying moisture. This knowledge lives in the hands. It was put there by repetition, by the 10,000 times you did the thing until the doing was reflex. Troy needed carpenters, more than most cities and more than usual, because a city under siege is a city under continuous structural stress. The gates take punishment. The walls take punishment. The platforms and the siege structures and the repairs to buildings hit by Greek projectiles. All of it requires someone who knows wood and can work quickly and accurately under pressure. You became that person, not by ambition. You did not set out to be the carpenter the city called on when things needed to be done well and fast. You became it by being good at the work and being available, and by doing what was asked of you reliably enough that people stopped asking whether you could and started assuming that you would. This is how you end up holding a rope on the last day of Troy, because you are the person who does what is asked. And someone asked. The horse, when you first see it on the plain, strikes you professionally before it strikes you any other way. You walk around it. You look at the joinery at the legs as where they meet the body. You look at the way the neck is constructed, the engineering of a form that has to support its own weight and look like a horse, and be large enough too. You stop this thought. Large enough to what? You do not finish the thought. You file it in the place where inconvenient observations go, the place where you put things that do not have comfortable conclusions. The joinery is excellent. Whoever built this was as good as you, maybe better. The plain without the Greek camp is extraordinary. You have not been on the plain in 10 years. None of the civilians have. The plain was enemy territory for a decade. The space between Troy and the Greek camp, the battlefield, the place where the fighting happened and where the dead were collected, and where everything that was not Troy and not the Greek camp existed in a kind of terrible neutral zone. This morning the plain is just the plain. The grass, the river, the sky above it, the beach in the distance where the ships were, the beach now empty, the ships gone. You walk out through the Scaean gate with the crowd of people who cannot quite believe they are doing this, going onto the plain, freely, on a morning that is just a morning, the 10-year emergency suspended, possibly over. The feeling is difficult to describe. Not joy exactly, something more tentative than joy. Joy requires certainty, and this morning has no certainty in it yet. What it has is the absence of the specific dread that has been the background of every morning for 10 years. The dread that asks, will today be a battle day? Will today be the day the walls fail? Will today be the day that what you have been fearing arrives? That dread is gone this morning. Its absence is so large it is almost its own presence. You breathe the plain air. You have not breathed plain air in 10 years. It smells like grass and the river and the sea. It smells like before. The Greek camp is still there in its physical form. The structures, the remains of fires, the cleared ground where the tents were, the marks on the beach where the ships sat for a decade. People are walking through it, curious. The way people walk through a place that was dangerous and is now not dangerous, and the mind is still catching up to the change. You walk through it too. You look at the construction, the shelters, the storage structures, the organization of a large camp that has been in place for 10 years. You are looking at the craftsmanship. Even here, you are looking at the craftsmanship. This is your mind. This is how your mind works. The debate about the horse lasts most of the morning. You are not part of it. The debate happens among the people who make decisions. The priests, the elders, the surviving members of Priam's council, the military commanders. You are a carpenter. You stand with the other craftsmen and laborers who have come out onto the plain, and you listen. Burn it, says the priest Laocoon. His voice carries. He is the kind of man whose voice carries, whose conviction gives his words a weight that makes people pay attention even when they do not want to. He says, "This is a Greek trick," he says. "I do not trust the Greeks even when they bring gifts." He says, "Burn it," you think. He is right, you do not say this. The counter-argument is also present. A man named Sinon, a Greek who claims to have been left behind, who says the horse is sacred, that Athena will curse Troy if the horse is harmed. He speaks well. He speaks like someone who has thought carefully about what he is going to say and has prepared for every objection. You notice this. You are a craftsman, and craftsmen notice when something has been built with care. This speech has been built with care. You think, he has prepared this. You do not say this. Cassandra speaks. You have heard Cassandra before. Everyone in Troy has heard Cassandra. She is the king's daughter, the prophet, the woman who says true things that nobody believes. You do not disbelieve her exactly. You disbelieve that she can be right about everything, that the future can be that visible to one person. But you also remember, in the back of your mind where honest accounting happens, the specific times when what she said turned out to be correct. She says, "Do not bring it in." She says there are men inside. The crowd around you shifts, not in her direction. The decision is made by people above you. This is important to say clearly. You are a craftsman. The decision to bring the horse through the gate is made by Priam, by the priests, by the council. The decision filters down through the crowd as decisions do. Not announced exactly, but felt. The collective movement of a crowd that has arrived at a consensus. People beginning to move toward the horse with the specific purposeful energy of people who have decided something. Ropes appear. You do not know where the ropes come from. Someone is organized enough to have brought ropes. The ropes are distributed to the men with the right kind of build for pulling. The laborers, the craftsmen, the men whose work has given them the specific physical capability that this task requires. A rope arrives in your hands. The rope is thick, good rope, hemp, well twisted, the fibers tight and consistent, the kind of rope that does not fray under load. You register this without deciding to register it, because registering the quality of materials is what your mind does. Good rope. The Greeks left good rope with the horse. Of course they did. This thought arrives and you file it in the place. The horse is on rollers. Someone, again, the Greeks, the organized Greeks, who thought all of this through. Someone placed the horse on a platform with rollers that allow it to be moved across the ground with the pulling force of many men. This is good engineering. Simple, effective, the kind of solution that a person who understands load and friction arrives at naturally. Of course, it is good engineering. You file this too. The men around you take up the rope. There are perhaps 30 of you, spread along its length, enough to move the weight of the horse steadily across the plain toward the gate. The crowd of observers stands back. The crowd is celebrating already. The mood of people who have decided something is good and are behaving as if the goodness is already established fact. Someone gives a signal. You pull, the horse moves. The rope is heavy in your hands. The specific heaviness of a load that is at the edge of what can be moved. The weight that requires full commitment of the body. Legs driving, back straight, arms pulling. The whole physical self organized around the single purpose of moving the thing forward. You pull. The horse moves across the plain toward the gate. As you pull, you count the rollers. This is not a decision. Your mind counts things. It is how your mind processes physical work, by quantifying, by assessing, by understanding the mechanics of what is happening. You count the rollers, and you estimate the weight, and you calculate the force required. And the calculation tells you something. The horse is heavier than it should be for its size. You know what good timber weighs. You know what a structure this size, made of the timber you are looking at, should weigh. It is heavier than that, not by a little, by enough that the difference requires an explanation. Wood does not weigh more than wood, unless the wood contains something that is not wood. The Scaean gate is wide. You helped maintain this gate. You know its dimensions exactly. The opening, the height, the clearance on either side. When the horse approaches the gate, you can see immediately that it will not fit. The horse is too wide for the opening. Not by much, by enough. They widen the gate. This is the detail that will stay with you. They break open part of the wall beside the gate to widen the passage. The wall of Troy, the wall that has kept the Greeks out for 10 years, is broken to let the horse in. Men with tools, your tools, the tools of your trade. Take down a section of the wall that should never have been taken down. You watch this. You think, we are breaking our own wall. You keep pulling. The horse goes through. The crowd erupts. The sound of it is enormous. The sound of 50,000 people releasing 10 years of held breath. The specific roar of collective relief that has no individual voice in it. Only the mass of feeling expressing itself as sound. You are standing in the middle of it, rope in your hands, the horse now inside the walls of Troy, and the sound washes over you. You feel it too. In spite of everything your mind has been filing in the place where inconvenient observations go, you feel the relief. You are part of this city. You have been part of this city for 38 years. The war has been your war too, your work, your walls, your gates. The ending of it, if it is ending, is your ending too. You let go of the rope. You look at the horse. It stands in the square inside the scan gate, very still. You look at it for a long moment. Then the crowd carries you into the celebration, the wait. You keep coming back to the wait, standing in the square, in the celebration. Wine being pressed into your hand, the city around you singing. You keep coming back to the calculation you made while pulling. The horse was heavier than it should be. You are a craftsman, you understand materials. You understand weight. The horse was heavier than wood. The discrepancy has an explanation, and the explanation has a shape, and the shape of it is in the place where you have been filing things all morning, and the place is getting full. The city celebrates around you. You drink the wine that is given to you. You eat the food that is shared. You let the celebration carry you the way a current carries something that has stopped swimming. The mood is powerful, the specific intoxication of collective joy that makes individual doubt feel antisocial, feel like a betrayal of something shared. The city is happy. You are part of the city. You drink the wine, but you do not go home. You stay near the horse, not conspicuously, not in a way that anyone would notice. You move through the celebration, and you circle back to the square, and you look at the horse, and then you move away again. You do this 3 or 4 times over the course of the afternoon, each time coming a little closer, each time looking a little longer. The horse is very still, too still perhaps. A wooden structure in a city square should move slightly in the afternoon breeze, the platform settling, the wood shifting with temperature change, the small sounds that all large wooden structures make as the day progresses. This horse makes no sound. It is more still than wood. You think something inside is making itself very quiet. You think this clearly. You do not say it. To whom would you say it? The priests have decided. The elders have decided. The king has decided. The crowd is celebrating. You are a carpenter. Who listens to a carpenter about the geopolitical implications of the weight of a wooden horse? You are not Cassandra. You do not have the standing of a prophet or a princess. You have the standing of a craftsman who pulled a rope because he was asked to pull a rope. You drink the wine, you go home, you lie down, you do not sleep. Your wife asks you what is wrong. You have been married for 15 years and she can read you the way you read timber. By the grain, by the small signs that tell her things about your state that you have not said aloud. She asks. You say nothing. She looks at you. You say, I am tired. She accepts this. She goes to sleep. You lie beside her in the dark, and you listen to the city celebrate outside. And you think about the weight of the horse and the stillness of the horse, and the place where you have been filing inconvenient observations all day. And you think about whether there is anything you could do. Now, tonight, that would change what is going to happen. And you think that there is not. And you think that even if there were, you would not know how to do it. You are a carpenter. You pulled a rope. The rope is no longer in your hands. The sounds start in the deep part of the night. You are awake when they start because you have not been asleep. You hear them and you know immediately what they are. Not because you have heard them before, but because you have been preparing yourself for them all day in the part of your mind that was doing the accounting while the rest of you was celebrating. Greek voices inside the walls. Your wife wakes at the first sound of fighting. She sits up. She looks at you. You are already sitting up. You look at each other in the dark, and what passes between you in that look is everything you did not say and she did not ask, and both of you knew but did not have words for. She says, "The horse." You say, "Yes." She says, "You knew." You say, "I thought. I was not certain." She says, "You were certain." You say nothing. She says nothing. Outside, the sounds are getting worse. You get up. You are a practical person. The conversation about what you knew and when you knew it is a conversation for another time. For a time when the immediate emergency has resolved, when there is space for the kind of reckoning that the conversation requires. Right now, there is the immediate emergency, and the immediate emergency requires action. You take your wife's hand. You go. You think about Cassandra at the gate. You heard her. You heard the specific things she said. The men inside, the trap, the burning. You heard them, and you filed them in the place, and you kept pulling the rope. This is the thing you will carry. Not that you pulled the rope. You pulled the rope because you were asked, and the decision was made by people above you, and even if you had refused, someone else would have pulled it. Not the pulling, the not speaking, the weight you calculated, and the stillness you observed, and the place where you filed the conclusions, and the rope still in your hands when you could have put it down. You did not put it down. You kept pulling. You survive. This is not nothing. Many do not survive the night Troy falls. You survive it through the practical knowledge of a craftsman who knows his city's structures, the places that will hold, the back ways, the exits that are not the main exits. You take your wife through these places. You come out the other side. The years after are different years, not in a city. The city is gone. In a village east of where Troy was, in the hills, a place far enough from the coast that the Greeks do not trouble it, a place where people who survived the fall of Troy came and made something smaller and quieter than what they had before. You are a carpenter. There is work for a carpenter everywhere. You build things in the village. Houses, fences, the ordinary structures of ordinary life. Your hands do the work they have always done. Your mind reads the timber the way it has always read timber. The work is the same work. The place is different. The city that was the context for the work is gone. You do not talk about the horse, not because anyone asks and you refuse, because no one asks. The people in the village who were in Troy that day have their own versions of that day, their own things they did and did not do, their own weight from it. The horse is something everyone carries privately. Your wife knows. She has always known. She said it that night. You were certain, and she was right. You were certain. You are a craftsman. You read materials. The horse told you what it was, and you read it, and you kept pulling. She does not hold it against you. You are not sure you deserve this. In the village, there is sometimes timber that reminds you of the horse. Not the same timber. The horse was built from specific wood, fur probably. Good, straight-grained fur that holds its shape. But sometimes a piece of timber has the same density, the same weight in the hand. And for a moment, your hands remember the weight of the rope, the resistance of the load, the specific physical sensation of pulling the horse across the plain. The hands remember before the mind does. The mind can choose not to think about the horse. The hands cannot choose what they remember. You have an accounting, not written down, carried. The internal accounting that a person conducts when they have done something they cannot undo and must find a way to live with it. The accounting goes like this. You pulled the rope because you were asked. The decision to bring the horse in was made by the priests, the elders, the king. Your role was to execute the decision, not to make it. You are a craftsman, not a counselor. The hierarchy of Troy was clear on this point, as hierarchies are always clear on this point. Decisions are made at the top and carried out at the bottom, and the people at the bottom are not responsible for the wisdom of the decisions they carry out. This is true. You also had information. This is also true. The accounting must include both. The decision was not yours, and the information was yours, and the information was inconvenient, and the decision was already made, and you filed the information in the place where inconvenient information goes when the decision is already made, which is the place where inconvenient information is put to keep it from complicating things that have already been decided. You kept pulling. The accounting does not resolve. You have been conducting it for years, and it does not resolve. The two true things sit beside each other without reconciling. The decision was not yours. The information was yours. Both true, both in the accounting, neither canceling the other out. You build things in the village. Your hands are good hands. They have always been good hands. You think sometimes about the man who built the horse, the Greek carpenter who built the thing you pulled. You think about him with something that is not quite admiration and not quite resentment, and is perhaps the specific feeling of one craftsman looking at another craftsman's work and recognizing it as excellent, even when the excellence served a purpose you wish it had not served. The joinery was clean. The engineering was correct. The weight was calculated properly for the load it needed to carry. He built a good horse. You built good walls. The walls held for 10 years. The horse was inside them for one night. The horse won. There is no rope now. You do not keep rope as a reminder. You use rope the way any craftsman uses rope, for the work, when the work requires it. The specific rope from that day is gone. The horse is gone. Troy is gone. The plain where it happened is still there, presumably. The grass still growing over the place where the rollers left tracks, and the crowd stood and you pulled. But sometimes, working, your hands find a tension that is the same tension. The specific pull of a load at the edge of what can be managed. The feel of hemp rope under full body weight. The way the shoulders take the strain when the legs are driving, and the back is holding, and the arms are the last part of the chain between the person and the load. Your hands remember. Not every time, not constantly, but sometimes. And in the remembering, there is no drama, no sudden flood of guilt or grief. Just the memory, arriving in the hands, of a specific day and a specific load, and the direction it was moving when you were moving it. Toward the gate, toward the city, into everything that came after. You did your job. Your job changed everything. These two things are the accounting. The accounting does not resolve. You keep working. Your son is learning the trade. He is 14, at the age when the hands begin to develop the specific calluses of a craftsman's hands, the specific reading of timber that comes from working it daily. He does not know about the horse. You have not told him. Not as a decision, not as a deliberate choice to withhold. It simply has not come up, the way many things from before do not come up in the after. He knows there was a war and a city, and that the city is gone. He does not know about the rope. Someday perhaps you will tell him, not as a confession, as a lesson about what it means to have information, and what it means to have a role in a hierarchy, and what the relationship is between those two things when the information and the role point in different directions. The evening comes down over the village. You have been working since morning. A new house for a family who arrived from the coast last season. The frame going up, the work going well. Your hands are tired in the good way of hands that have done honest work. The timber is good. The joints are fitting cleanly. Tomorrow the walls go on. You sit outside. Your wife brings food. She sits beside you. The evening is warm. In the hills above the village, a bird is singing the specific song of late evening. The song that says, the light is going and the night is coming, and the night is nothing to be afraid of. You eat. The food is good. Your wife says something about the new family. You listen. You respond. The conversation of an evening. The ordinary texture of a life that continues. Somewhere behind the hills in the direction of the coast is the plain where Troy was. You do not look that direction, not because you cannot, because the evening is here, and the food is good, and your wife is beside you, and the bird is singing, and the work is honest work, and these things are real and present, and the plain is behind the hills and far away. The rope is not in your hands. It has not been in your hands for a long time, but you remember the weight of it. You will always remember the weight of it. Some things the hands do not forget you eat. The evening comes down. The bird sings. You are still here. Close your eyes. The rope was heavy. The horse was heavier than wood. You pulled anyway. You did your job. Your job changed everything. A note of history. The wooden horse of Troy is one of the most famous stratagems in military history. In the ancient tradition, it was devised by Odysseus and built by the craftsman Epeius, who was aided by Athena. The Greeks selected their best warriors to hide inside. Different sources give different numbers, ranging from a handful to 40 or more. The rest of the fleet sailed away to hide behind the nearby island of Tenedos, creating the impression of departure. The debate about what to do with the horse is described in several ancient sources. The priest Lao Kun famously argued against bringing it in and was killed along with his sons by sea serpents sent by Athena, an event that the Trojans interpreted as divine punishment for his opposition to the horse. Cassandra warned that the horse was a trap. Both were ignored. Sinon, the Greek left behind to deceive the Trojans, convinced them that the horse was sacred to Athena and that bringing it inside the walls would protect the city. The physical logistics of moving the wooden horse are described in some ancient sources as requiring the partial demolition of the city walls, since the horse was too large to fit through the gates. This detail, that the Trojans broke their own walls to admit the instrument of their destruction, has a specific, tragic irony that ancient poets recognized. The men who actually pulled the horse through the gate are not named in ancient sources. They were ordinary workers, the physical labor of the city, performing a task that had been decided by their superiors. Their anonymity in the historical record reflects their status, essential to the event and invisible in its telling. The question of what ordinary people knew and suspected about the horse, and what they did with that knowledge, is not addressed in ancient sources, which focus on the famous figures and the divine machinery of the story. The knowledge available to a skilled craftsman, the ability to estimate weight and notice structural anomalies, would have been significant. Whether any Trojan craftsmen drew the conclusions that their professional knowledge might have suggested, and what they did or did not do with those conclusions, is the kind of human detail that ancient epic does not record. Doros is a fictional character. The situation he finds himself in, holding knowledge that points toward an uncomfortable conclusion, while participating in a collective action organized by people with more authority, is not fictional. It is a recognizable human situation that appears in every era and every context where individual knowledge and institutional decision-making come into conflict. Next, the soldier inside the horse.